Hey everybody, it's Tom, and coming up to you today to follow up on my two previous videos, roughly, and those were respectively sketching existentialism, or some elements of existentialism, which I have found valuable, and similarly, in the second video, Marxism. Marxism, decidedly more difficult to summarize in nutshell form, because as a tradition it reaches out along multiple trajectories, whereas existentialism, by contrast, though its scope is significant, also has a kind of generality that conduces to more straightforward communication or relay as to the themes which animate its unfolding. Some people, as I noted last time, perceive a tension between the existentialist and the Marxist tradition, and I think the real root of that percept is found in that, as a rule, Marxism's focus is upon phenomena that are occurring on a macroscopic scale. A strata materia, from the perspective of society at large. And so the predominant categories are categories like class. Whenever one ascends that kind of scale of analysis, it becomes almost inevitable that you bracket or simplify the terms of expression to accommodate that ascent to generality. And so you almost have to presume something like a generic human being in order to effect that maneuver. Another concomitant of that abstraction is the impression of necessity, the impression that things follow, if not in a very strictly logical manner, at least in a highly probabilistic manner. One which, if is not actually determinist, is all but determinist in its implications or insinuations. The sort of methodological root of this tact came after Marx and Engels to be known as dialectical materialism. The dialectical term of that phrase being inherited most immediately from, well, apart from Marx and Engels, most immediately from Hegel, who wished to advance that we cannot be particularly happy with the consequences of a merely formal logic. Merely formal logic has a kind of sterility that prevents us from really moving forward with our sense of reality. He offered as a counterpoint, this is something of a simplification, more dialectical tact, which advanced that it is necessary to appreciate 2 points. One being that, in his view, the form and the content were not actually separable. So the notion of merely logically valid propositions that stand sort of insulated from the implications of their content is for him essentially empty. The second major point, which sort of can be taken out of the Hegelian analysis, is that what we perceive to be contraries don't actually exclude each other. In fact, they include and depend upon each other. I should add onto this a third and vital term, and namely one which tries to deal with the paradox of change in the universe by appeal to this notion of the interaction between contraries as they play out through history. Now, all of this for Hegel occurs in the sphere of reason or spirit, and as such is a mode of idealism. This caused great consternation for many, not the least of whom would be one of the exponents of existentialism, Kierkegaard, and also those relationship with Hegel is not as directly adversarial, Nietzsche, but also Marx, because he felt that the idealism of the Hegelian view severed one's connection to the empirical that has been perceived as the real basis of the success of the natural sciences, of the project of science, of which Marx wished to advance himself, and socialism as a direct result. Now, this leads into a whole set of other questions as to the nature of the scientific project, which we are going to set aside because I wanted to discuss these matters with regard to the question of whether one can actually reconcile Marxism with the existentialist commitment to freedom and in the individual in light of the weight granted to materialistic propositions under the umbrella of dialectical materialism. So the materialism is where you get this commitment to the empirical. Now, there's an ambiguity in the word material, which is really crucial. I want to read that word as a methodological commitment, a sensitivity to what is germane in a given situation, not a metaphysical or physical commitment, which gives primacy to what we refer to as the physical stuff of the world. As long as we are within the ambit of the former, materialism as a methodological commitment, there really is no deep problem in reconciling existentialism with it, because existentialism is absolutely emphatic that for freedom to be authentic, it must be exercised in specific, concrete circumstances, material, if you like, circumstances. By contrast, if we read materialism as a kind of physicalism, or to use another word, naturalism, then a tension does arise, because it is implicitly subordinating the individual to the dictatorship, if you like, of the physical. And it turns the human being into just the outcome of certain biochemical phenomena, with which the existentialists will have no truck, or most existentialists, including myself. I want to designate myself as an existentialist. Labels are, of course, incredibly dangerous. Also, I should say that ultimately, a commitment to physicalism is not to be seen as ultimately in tandem with the revolutionary vision of Marxism, which wants us to embrace a world that actually transcends the terms of physical necessity, which Marx himself identifies as central to the project. He wants to talk about the realization of actual freedom, and that means moving beyond the strictures of what would be only naturally determined. So in brief, or for me, right, in brief, I know I can go on. I don't think there's any deep issue in reconciling Marxism and existentialism. Thanks, guys. Ciao for now.